This right here is my 13-liter modular still. Today I'm going to go step by step what is each component and how we set it up. If you're new to distilling and you're curious about modular stills, then this one's for you. Hey everyone, Distiller Greyling here, one of your favorite home and hobby distillers. And yes, this is my kick-off. This is my video number 1 of my 100 video series. So today I just want to go step by step through my modular still and show you guys how it works, how it looks, and what each component does, and also explain a bit why I choose a modular still. So when I started out with this whole distilling idea, the plan was to go commercial. So I wanted a small enough still that I can use that will be easy for recipe building, and then you can later just scale up to a bigger still. And I found that this modular still really worked for me. Also, I liked the way how it looked. I really loved it. It really caught my eye as well. But it doesn't mean that you have to have a modular still or have to have this specific still as well. I've seen a lot of stills that still does the job, and I've seen a lot of home-built stills that looks really cool. So don't take this as the only still you have to use when you're new to distilling. You can have any still. Just make sure it's safe and it's practical. I've seen some rough stills as well that I thought to myself that, yo guys, are you safe when you're distilling? But yes, some guys just want to have to get that alcohol out, so they will use anything that I have lying around. So alright, let's kick it off. Obviously, first up, you'll have your boiler. So this is my 13-liter boiler. I'm not even sure how 13-liter translates to gallons. Maybe there's something I can look at. I will definitely see. As I spoke before, my still is serialized and labeled as well. Then that's also why I'm able to be a legal home and hobby distiller here in South Africa. In one of the previous videos when we did unpacking, we did notice that side glass has a little bit of a chip in. Spoke to my brother-in-law and we kind of have an idea that might have what happened is someone might have opened it up without realizing that the glass can come out, and the glass might have come out and now it doesn't want to come out, and the glass might have come out and it might have fall, and they just put it back without realizing that it actually has cracked or chipped. But okay, it's not too bad. Like I said, the seals itself is on the flat surface, so I think it will definitely still work. We'll definitely test it out when we do our first cleaning run. We will then see how it does or how it performs. But yes, I also like the side glass part in the boiler. So a lot of times then I can see how the mash is actually boiling. So it's very nice, especially if I've got a low level. Sometimes I do fill it up more, then obviously you can't really see. You will just see the colors and a little bit of bubbles. But it's sometimes nice to have a low level and you can actually look inside with a flashlight and see how it is going. So the boiler itself, I will be using it on a induction stove with that induction adapter, but it can also be used for gas as well. And that's also why I said that I definitely want to test it out with gas as well. Have a small gas burner, have it outside, and just see how much different gas is against the electricity. Because at the moment the induction stove that I have has got constant heat input, so it's not a temperature that I regulate. They keep on watts, either 200 watts or 500 watts or 1000 watts on up. I've seen if I do a gin distillation, I like to keep it around 500 watts. If I do a little bit of a stirring run a bit higher, I would take it up to 1000 or 1200. I have seen that when I tend to have it on the 500 watts, it's sometimes just a little bit almost running too hot for my defraginator because it is very small, so you can't push all the reflux down. And then if I put it on 200, it's as if there's too little heat and the still actually just comes to a halt. So I would definitely see that maybe in a later stage, if I can get another induction stove that has a more finer setting between the 200 and the 500, if you can maybe put it at 350 or 400. But we can also play around with that. And that's also why I want to try and use the gas to see how does the gas regulate. Because you do not have a fixed number, but at least when you know you turn your knob, you can also have a look of how it's doing. And that's also why I like to see the temperature, especially on my alembic head itself, or even on the top just before the 180 degree bend, also to see what the temperature is there. But yes, so this is our boiler. Stuff that I also have for my boiler is this rubber lining thingamajiggy. I seriously can't remember what that thing is called. Maybe if I go through all my old notes I might see, but technically I can roll it up like this and then I will stuck it inside the still. And like I said, it's for when you have got botanicals that you want to boil and still have that flavor, then you can have your botanicals here and you don't run the risk of burning it onto your still at the bottom. So to give you an example, if argument's sake we take this coffee bean and you do pour it there, you will have that nice infusion of the coffee while it's boiling, and this can take the heat, but you don't have the risk of the coffee beans lying straight at the bottom where the heat is that it might burn. I had an instance once where I actually had a rum fermentation, was a bit hasty, strained it out quickly and there was a lot of date yeast in, and it actually burned right at the bottom of my still. And it was actually bad. It took that burnt smell through the whole still. Even at the distillate at the end, you still had that burny taste. And it wasn't a nice burny taste, it was really bad burny taste. So yes, I made a burnt rum, not ideal. But that's also why when you do your straining, to make sure that you do it slowly and you do it properly, that you don't have any of those dead yeast. But all right, so yes, I use this, that you can see you've got all your botanicals lying there and it will boil nicely. I had some really nice infusions done with that, because you can have the botanicals boil in your mash that you have inside the boiler and you don't have the risk of letting it burn. All right, let's just close this guy for now. So yes, boiler. What else can I tell about the boiler? I've run it very full. I've run it halfway. I've had it with 2 liters in here if I just want to do a quick gin experiment. So it's very practical and very nice. Also, when I do my distillations, I would also tend to dilute some of the natural grain spirit that I use for gin. I don't want to use it at 80 or 60%. I would dilute it down to 20% and then give me more volume in the still as well. All right, so coming from the still or from the boiler, what's our next steps? Okay, so depending on what you want to do and how you want to build your modular still, let's say if you want to do a quick pot still run, then obviously you will have your boiler. You can have your alembic head just to have that little bit of reflux if you want to, and then from there you can have straight your 180 degree bend, come down to your condenser, and then have it as a pot still. If you want to do something more, if you maybe want to see how it looks, then you can add the side glass. I tend to almost always use the side glass because I just like seeing how things work and how you will first see the vapors coming and then later you'll see a little bit of condensation on the glass and then it will go. It tends to get real hot, so you don't want to touch it. What I will then also use the side glass for is my gin runs. So I will have the perforated plate right at the bottom. That will just kept as a guide to make sure nothing falls through. And then I will have my gin baskets. So I tend to add it in, hook it up here on top. So now I might have already measured out what gin I want to use, have my recipe ready. So then I would just take all my botanicals and I would throw it straight into the basket. Especially if your botanicals are a little bit small and fine. These perforated plates holes are quite large. If I look at it, looking maybe at a 4 to 5 millimeter in diameter, so you don't want the botanicals to fall through. So if typically now I want to do a vapor infusion, so I want to keep the bags here. I only want to focus on vapor coming through. I don't want to boil it inside the boiler itself, inside the mash. So I'll have my gin bag, have my recipe measured out, get it in, close it up, and then when I do pack it inside, I will definitely tend to see that I try and push it down as firmly as possible so that there's no open spaces. You don't want the gin bag to sit like that, where you will have a easy vapor path coming through here, and then you got nothing that actually takes out, or minimum vapor that passes through your botanicals as well. So I would definitely try and pack it spread it out nicely, evenly, that there's no room for easy vapors coming through, that 100% of the vapors will go through the botanicals to extract that flavor that we want. All right, so that's when I do use it for gin, with my gin bags, very nice. When I do want to use a bubble cap, I do got this 4-inch bubble cap that I tend to use. Then I would dismantle the side glass. It's actually very nice. So I've got my 2 spanners, and then I would just dismantle it and have easy access to the where I want to put the. Right, I will just loosen it up, make sure that I can get it out, and then I would use this seal, and I will just check, and I've got a second one as well that I will insert to make sure that the plate is between the 2 seals. So I will have stainless steel, a rubber seal, the copper plate, a rubber seal, and then a glass again. Always make sure if you've got any metal that there is a seal between the connections, otherwise you will have a risk of running that vapor that's going to come through. So I will then place in my bubble cap with my seal, and then I would place it back in. Once I've got it lined, I will just first make sure that all the seals are still good. You don't want it to slip out somewhere. I can feel everything is good. And then I would just close it up. I tend to leave the perforated plate on the other side, as even if I still use the bubble cap plate as is, the perforated plate is not going to really influence it. It's going to give it a little bit of reflux, but not as much. It's really, like I said, the holes are quite big, and even though it's there, I will just place it like that, because that's how I want the bubble caps to work. So I will then place it on top there, and then I know, all right, I've got my bubble caps in, down comer is facing down, rest of the caps is facing up, and it's actually a nice visual to see that when the when the condensation does start to drop and it starts to lie on the plate, to actually see that bubbling going through. So I definitely like that as well. Just going to put it aside. So from my 4-inch, then we go to the alembic head 4-inch. So the alembic head, or the copper head, it's got a few functions. Ah, shucks, first time that I see this. It's got a few scratches and a dent there. That's not nice. Didn't saw that when I unpacked it. Alright, we'll definitely see when we do clean it out what we can do there. Alright, that's not too bad. Handle it twice and I missed it. Alright, in any case. So the alembic head's got a few functions. First up, it is copper. So it gives you that little bit of copper in your still to trap some of the impurities. So you will tend to see a lot of it sticking on the inside. So you do have to clean it out every now and again. I use citric acid to clean out all my copper equipment. Secondly, it is shaped to kind of enhance vapor contact. You know, it goes out so it can have a lot of vapor, and then it forces the vapor back in. So it will tend to accumulate a lot of condensation on top here. Copper is also a very easy conductor of heat. So especially if you have a cool environment, it will tend to create more reflux. So typically if you do distill in a very cold environment, you can have more reflux than having it in a very summer, hot environment where even your atmosphere is very hot. So yes, it helps with that as well. Also, I just really like this alembic head, the shape of it and how it looks. The copper, especially when I clean it, it almost comes out like a pink almost, than having this brown copper. I can definitely see it's been oxidizing quite a lot, so I'm going to enjoy cleaning it out again to have it nice and clean. I've got a very big thermometer right in front just to see what is the vapor temperature inside the alembic head. I did previously also had it screwed off and had an electric digital thermometer on as well, but I tend to like just how this one looks, the big thermometer, so I will definitely keep this one on as well. So yes, I can either use it straight onto the boiler or have it between the boiler and the side glass, depending on what the plan is for the day, whether it's using the bubble cap, we're using the gin, or just when I want to use it to make sure it still looks nice. But yes, so this is the alembic head. So from there, it does go from the 4-inch to a 2-inch. Yes, 2-inch or 1.5-inch? Probably, no, it's a 2-inch. It goes to a 2-inch. All right, just put that there. So from the 2-inch, then yet again, you got a lot of decisions what you want to do and what's your distillation that you have for the day. If you just want to use a pot still, like I said, the 180-degree bend will take it down. So that's not going to force your vapors to go down into your condenser. If you don't want to do a pot still that specific day and you maybe want a little bit of more, let's say, less flavor but a higher ABV or more purity, then you will start to have more columns or more packing, more ways where reflux can form. Condensation will be forced down to get more purity. So what I have, I've got this column section that I have that I like to call my column still. Let me just put it the right way up. So it's yet again, I liked the glass that I can actually see how it bubbles. It's got one bubble cap on each tray with a perforated plate, and then the stainless steel just guides the condensation not to go down straightly into the next cap but on the side, so that it can accumulate on the perforated plate as well as the bubble cap itself. So I really enjoy this one, especially if you want to do a high reflux run or a little bit of whiskey. I like to keep this one in as well. So I like this, and we will definitely run it when we do our first cleaning run. Well, we're going to connect everything to make sure that it's clean and that we can have it, so that we can have everything ready for our first run as well. So from the column, the glass column, if we just now look at the 2-inch itself, I've got two things that I like to use. So I've got my thermometer that I tend to use right at the top to see what's my temperature that's going to come out before it goes to my 180-degree bend. I also have my small defraginator or reflux condenser. So just a small shotgun one that I will then add right here, so that I can know that, all right, from the column still or from the alembic head itself, I can have my condenser, tune my condenser, and I will look at my temperature. If I see that my temperature is not where I want it to be, I would then change on my cooling water until I have my desired temperature. If I had it other way around, I would just have my temperature at the top of my column and not really be able to accurately see what's the temperature that goes out. So that's why I like to run it on top like that. So talking about condenser, whether you're using a defraginator or a larger condenser like this one, it's important to know where your cooling water and your inlet cooling water and your exit cooling water comes in. So I tend to use my cooling water at the bottom. So cooling water would come in and it will start to full, and then come out. So then I know my whole condenser is full of water. If I have cooling water on the top, it might just fall down, fill up here, and then start to exit. And I might have a space here at the back that's not fully submerged in cooling water. So obviously always have a condenser at the lowest point, even if it's standing at the angle or doesn't matter. Always try and have your lowest point as your incoming water. Cooling water will come in, full, and then come out. Even this way it will fill and still come out, so that you know that maximum percentage of your condenser is full of water. So speaking about condensers, I use this nice cooling water pipes as well as these quick connectors. So depending on what the day is, maybe I'm doing a full run where I'm going to use both the small condenser, defraginator, and my large condenser. I like to use this wire fitting that I can split. So I'll have my main cooling water pipe comes in, and then I have two pipes going to each condenser. And I also like this quick release actions, that when it's in, it doesn't want to come out and it seals nice, but as soon as you press it out, you can quick release it. So that's nice. I also got T sections depending on how it is today. And then I've got my needle valves. Needle valves for the main condenser is not so necessary. You know, I tend to almost just keep it fully open, but needle valves really help when you start to do fine adjustments on your defraginator. I also have a little dial here that I can see exactly, you know, Have I turned it a quarter or half so that I can remember, all right, I've got it 4 turns open or 2.5 turns open, so that I can also remember next time when I do my distillation again that 2.5 turns was that magic sweet spot, and I tend to use it always there. So when you do use cooling water, try and have a needle valve for more precision. It really helped me out a lot. All right, so that's condenser. So we have now alembic head, column still, reflux condenser, thermometer, and then we come to the 180 degree bend. So my 180 degree bend, I tend to also add the copper. Like I said in the previous time, it's good to have a little bit of copper in your still. Copper tends to help to get some of the impurities out that you might not really know about, and copper is a very good way to get it out. So what I would tend to do is I would roll out copper, measure it out, cut it, and then I would roll it up that I can fit it into my still like that, and then I would press it inside, and then I would actually have a few of them inside to help to get that impurities out. So I would then have it inside here, so when it's now the vapor will pass through, there will be a little bit of reflux as well that will go down, but obviously when it starts to get above the middle point, the 90 degree, it will start to go down, and it will already be a little bit more condensed before it goes to the condenser. Then from the 180 degree bend, depending on what I have for that day, I might have a pot still, so then I will go straight to my condenser. It might be that I've now got the column still on and I want to extend it a little bit. Then I've got this extender pipe. So it's just a straight pipe, nothing fancy. I tend to sometimes even put copper in here as well if I want to. I will just be careful when I do add my condenser that the copper doesn't fall off or out. So but yes, my extender pipe also really helps just to also balance your still. As you build it, you tend to know that, all right, the boilers might stand on the ground, so I want to catch up here, so then I will not have my extender pipe. But if I'm on the counter and I've got my boiler the same height as where I want to collect it, it's nice to have it down so that it's also more easy accessible. If you're working on the ground, that's also fine. Just give it a nice comfortable seat that you can always just sit and relax. You don't want to stand a lot. All right, so yes, condenser, like I said, the same as the small defraginator. Cooling water at the bottom, all the way up, hot water will come out. And just again, just a straightforward shotgun condenser. All that a condenser does is it cools down the vapors so that it can condense, so that you can have distillate. So I've seen many type of condensers. People seen them building condensers. There's no specific way how a condenser must be. It just needs to be enough contact for your cooling water on the metal to be able to condense the vapors into distillate. All right, so from my condenser, I will have my Brever. So the Brever is just basically a piece of equipment that will help regulate the pressure inside your still when it comes through. Your vapors might not be always a constant flow, and it might condense and actually form a little bit of a seal layer inside your condenser, and then you have a risk of over pressurizing or making a vacuum inside your still, and this Brever would help to relieve that. It will suck air when it needs to suck air when it's almost into vacuum point, or it will relieve some pressure when there's too much pressure. And it's also designed to not interfere with the distillate. You will not have a chance where this will fill up and distillate will come out here, but it will just help to vacuum break or relieve the pressure. This Brever is very important for your still. I've distilled once without this. I forgot about it, and I actually had it sounded like how can I say, a drain or something was like the whole time, so it's not very good. So yes, I definitely like to have my Brever in as well. After my Brever, I will then have my parrot. For the parrot, I definitely like to use, the reason why I like to use the parrot, or the reason for the parrot, is that I can have a constant alcohol measurement as I'm distilling. A lot of times I know that I've done this recipe a few times, and at a certain ABV percentage, then I know, all right, this is now the end of my run, I can stop it. Sometimes when I do a distillation for the first time, it's also interesting to see what is the ABV going to be when it comes out. Obviously, pot still will be lower, but having a glass column with a bubble cap, you will tend to have a more purity, more high reflux run. Also, when you tune down your reflux condenser, that there's a lot of cooling water in it and you're forcing a lot of reflux down your still, you also have a higher ABV that comes out here. So just to show you guys in practical, so you will have your alcohol meter, and your alcohol meter will come in there. I actually did break one of my alcohol meter once, so whenever you do drop it inside, just make sure you drop it in neatly, that you don't let go of it here and it will hit the bottom and it will break. So it will just sit in there. So what then will happen is that through your condenser and your brever, eventually you'll have all your condensate or your distillate will start to fill up, and in here you have two pipe within a pipe. So your first outer pipe will start to fill up, fill up, and eventually your distillate will overflow right here on top, on the inside, will flow right out here on the top into your small funnel that you have got here, and then as it accumulates, then the distillate will come out. So the idea behind that is that in the middle, where your distillate will slowly fill up till here, this alcohol meter will, ABV meter will bubble here, and then you will see what is your percentage. You will see it's around 60% ABV or 90 ABV. So your ABV and your proof also works about double. So if anything is at 70% alcohol or 70% ABV, it tends to be double that in proof. You got 140 proof. So here in South Africa, we just use, or let's say I was taught with ABV percentage, so that's why I use the more ABV one. But I do know in America you guys use more proof, so you'll tend to be more familiar with proof of a spirit. But just this worked for me. So yes, that's the main concept of a parrot, just to have that constant reading that as you distill you can see how it goes. So you will typically see that when you start to distill, it will be fairly inside because you will have a high purity, and as you distill you will see slowly it will actually come out until you know, all right, maybe at 20 or 10% ABV, that's not on the end of my run, and then you can just take it out. So like I said, be careful. It is thin glass, you don't want to break it. Like I said, I had broken one once, so it's not very nice. So that is the parrot. And then yes, from the parrot itself you will have your bottom drain. So obviously I will keep it closed during runs, and when I'm done I can just drain it as well. It will also come out there where I will catch it. I did have a plastic pipe once that I had it here and then with a bucket, but most of the times I will just let it run straight into whatever catch pot I have. Doesn't really matter. All right, other loose things that we have got here is just the clamps. So obviously being modular, you've got all these clamps that really helps you connect the stuff, the equipment. So I really like these type of clamps, and it's also nice to have it a quick release type of thing. You can turn it, it seals nicely. We've got also the smaller ones. Most of them are the 2-inch ones for the rest of the still. Alright, then I also got obviously the seals. Make sure that any metal to metal contact, if I have got my reflux condenser and I do put on my thermometer, I would then put the seal in between. Also make sure that it lies nice and properly and get it done there. So, and then put the clamp on so that you know it's nice and secure, just like that. Alright, and then just tight it nice. So actually what happens is that the clamp itself, just put it like that, so the clamp itself is running a little bit tapered, as well as these is also tapered. So the more you turn it, that taper is then pushing the two pieces of equipment that you have against one another onto that seal. And that's why the harder you turn it, the more it's compressing, and that's why it's making that proper seal as well. Alright, so what else do I have got here on the table? We did spoke about water connections, we did talk about the clamps. Retrot itself, I just place it here. So the retrot stand is like the one that I said that I put on the ground that I keep for just more stability of the still. I use it during runs or even for displays. So in a sense, it's basically just a foot piece with a rod that's nice, firm and sturdy, and some way of connecting it with the still. Mine just come out with this nice crocodile clamp that I have, and I really enjoyed it. I've used it a lot, and like I said, I also use it for display purposes as well. So in a nutshell, this is my 13-liter modular still. Like I said, it's very versatile. I really like it. I really like the flexibility of it. Depending on what I want to do that specific day, I can set it up for that specific run. I will check the link of my previous video that I did. There I actually assembled each part as I go to show exactly how it's done. I'm thinking I'm going to keep this video a little bit shorter today. I'm not going to try to show everything together. I might just do a quick video, what do you call it, the time-lapse video of how I do assemble everything again for my display there in the corner. But yes, I appreciate you guys and thank you for watching. If you guys feel like you've got ideas for me or other equipment that I can actually add on to this, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. I was thinking of upgrading some of the gear, but I thought, let me just first get into the distilling phase and then we can start to see how we're going to upgrade. Next video that will come out will then definitely be the cleaning run. Like I said, we will do a vinegar run just to get that acidity inside the still to make sure everything is clean, and then I'll do a sacrificial run. I still got some neutral grain spirits that I distilled previous time that I will then add, also to get that alcohol vapors through the still and try and take out all the impurities and have it distilled ready and clean for a proper run. I will also definitely do the vinegar run here on the outside and not on the kitchen counter. I think that will be best, and I think that is it for now. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, be awesome, be kind, and be yourself. Cheers.